Well, I'm just going to get started. Like I said, we'll go through just a few minutes of some speech here, a little talking from me, and then we'll let you guys get you all engaged here, and we'll talk, maybe some questions and stuff to kind of go around the topic of soft skills. So just to kind of give you guys a little background. So I've been working on a speech with through some training, and I thought what a great topic, kind of what I've talked to a lot of people about, kind of with soft skills. Kind of, I know some of you are from the Agile community, and some of you have worked with in a kind of more of a coaching relationship. So, but this is kind of something I've been trying to, I guess, beat the drum on for a long time and share with a lot of people. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. But I will we'll go through that, and then we'll go from there with a little question. So we will get started. Here's a string of thoughts that ran through my mind early in my programming career. Why can't people just leave me alone and I can do my work? I can figure this out myself. I don't need any other's help or any input to turn this thing around. Why don't people understand me? I think it must be they're just dumb. They don't recognize genius when they see it. Perhaps you've been there too, a frustrated developer who feels like they know enough. However, the success you thought you'd have is out of reach. You see others who make better strides, but why? Is it a skills gap? I want to share with you a little bit about how I learned about my skills gap. Java, check. Linux, check. SQL, check. Humans, what? Humans are hard. Code is easy. So I focused on the technology. One of my first mentors was a database administrator named Doyle. He really knew his stuff, but didn't say much. That can make learning challenging. One thing Doyle would do is fix the problem for me. He would fix it quickly and then leave. What did you do? He was already gone. Working with Doyle gave me some insight. Technical people hate explaining basic stuff. Ask them a simple question and they will flip the bozo bit on you. What is the bozo bit, you say? A few years after working with Doyle, I worked with a software architect named Corey. Corey had many interesting observations. One thing he would do, if you asked him one stupid question, one that you probably could have answered by doing some research on your own, he wouldn't answer your question or work with you. That is the bozo bit. Bozo, of course, referring to Bozo the Clown, bit in reference to computer bit or binary storage. Corey was pretty extreme, but many developers can be that way. To gain respect from those developers, we need to know the technology. Code is easy, humans are hard. So I focused on the technology. I learned new things and tried to keep my head down and avoid getting the bozo bit on me. A few years later, I transitioned into a new job, technical lead. One year during my annual evaluation, my leader shared with me, Tom, we think you have solid credentials. Coding skills got you the job, but we need you to develop other skills. My leader shared with me where I was failing. Delegation. He shared how I wasn't delegating work to my teammates. Case in point, there was an upgrade that needed to be done. I did the work in 10 minutes. To explain that to some of my teammates would have taken twice that amount of time or more. Another trap I fell into with delegation is the belief in our value. We can convince ourselves that we are worth more when others can't do the same work as us. I remember working with Jamie the first time. He was always done quickly. I wasn't quite sure he knew what we were doing. And then I finally asked him. Here he had created a script to deploy changes and update dependencies. I was doing this all manually. I was worried about delegation, and the people I worked with had better ideas. Perhaps I didn't know everything I thought I did. A few years later, I got to work with a leader named John. We knew each other through a mutual friend. I had begun to coach individuals and teams. John wanted an outside resource to help him change his team's mindset. He shared how IT people work with others in a transactional fashion. We get the requirements and we solve the issue. John said, Tom, my team is like bank tellers. they get asked to fix something and they do, just like a teller gets a check and deposits the check. I want my team to be more like financial planners. A financial planner builds relationships, then they can anticipate needs. So I said to John, so you want your team to have better relationship with their customers? He said, Tom, if they have better relationships, they will develop empathy and understanding. Relationships, understanding, and empathy? Huh? That won't work. That's what I thought at the time, but I was wrong. John knew his team wasn't as understanding and as empathetic as he'd hoped they'd be. He began requiring them to talk to the community directors when they traveled. These conversations helped them empathize. Instead of just fixing the problem, they fostered relationships too. They also helped the team understand the community directors had many things on their plate. These conversations helped them see what was going on in the organization. John proved me wrong. He overcame his deficit by being curious and empathetic. From bank tellers to financial planners, he remade the image of his IT team. This brings me to my main idea. Coding skills got you the job. Influence will get you the career. Coding skills got you the job. Influence will get you the career. What do I mean? Developers are focusing on technology skills only. If you truly want to set yourself apart, you need to know how to influence and collaborate with teams. Gone are the days when we can just send in requirements with pizza and out pops code. Organizations are looking for more from their developers. The problem, my problem, was I was terrible at relationships. I had confirmation. I had proof. All right. That's the first part of a speech I wrote, guys. And I just thought it kind of talks a little bit about skills gaps. And I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that. So first off, in the speech there, I talk a little bit about kind of one of those moments where I realized that I had a skills gap. And I just want to share that with you guys and want to get your thoughts and kind of maybe reflect a little bit on maybe if you guys want to share a little bit about your career path and kind of how maybe you've seen some of that, or perhaps maybe you've seen somebody like that and ran into some situations. So Paul or Cliff, do you have anything, or Freed?
I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think that the person who does cultivate influence does get a leg up, and not a lot of people know how to begin doing that. It's not necessarily taught overtly, but the thing that I needed is more business acumen. Because I'm the kind of person that I'm independent. I like to focus on my task. I like to get it systematic and achievable, and that's the extent of it. In fact, I have purposely cultivated a path of ignoring anything but my immediate job.
Yes, that can be important. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, look, similar. I've come from being a very technical person, and then because I kept my mouth open all the time, they promoted me to look after others. And for a number of years, I was able to get by with, I could still match it with the technical aspects of my team, but obviously, as you do more management, you lose the hands-on skills. And it took me a little while to actually realise that I had to know just enough of the technical to be able to relate to the guys, but not actually having to cut any code or reorganize databases in those days. So I think the biggest challenge for me was to actually, go away from that singular talking to the computer to actually talking to people and actually understanding that, as you say there, it's the career aspect of it. So, totally agree with that.
Yeah. So how have you guys, so in there, I talk a little bit about like influence and things like that. What are some things that you guys have done to kind of help build influence with other teams or other people you work with?
So the past 5 years, I decided to finally get my degree. I've been to several different colleges studying different things, but it's just bits and pieces. And it's really, I mean, for example, I was in the Army for a while. I got some credit hours at school for doing that, you know, becoming an officer. And I took some technical training. I got some credit hours for that. And I had a variety of other things, but it didn't amount to a degree. The last 5 years or so, I thought, I'm going to finally get that. And I ended up, through a fluke mostly, signing up for communication as a minor. What a world that opened up. A whole bunch of things I didn't know that I didn't know, and that it would actually become a lot easier to talk with people and handle conflict and be able to have enough generosity to let them have their perspective without me, you know, combating them with mine.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having a polarizing conversation, now I can have a conversation where both sides win, both sides learn from each other. And unfortunately, I don't have a job anymore because it disappeared 6 months ago. But anyway, I still think the training that I've got and all the experience I've got, I still think is valuable.
Definitely.
I notice that people feel a lot better if they can communicate. So it creates an environment on the job where people feel understood and valued. And that's just as important as the work that they're doing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. Very good point. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, look, I think the big thing for me was just talking to people, and you know, that's easy to say, but I think doing things like sitting people with them at lunchtime, you're actually building a relationship by not talking about work. You're finding out a little bit about their families or their interests or the movies they like.
Mm-hmm.
I think then you have a relationship that enables you to have more difficult conversations. In this job, you're not ever going to agree with everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But if you know a person and they know you as a human, I think you can start with, look, I'm not sure if I agree with that form of open-ended way of getting into a question, rather than telling them, no, that's wrong, or you should do it this way. One of the challenges I always found was finding that balance with a team. They're sort of looking at you as the leader,
mm-hmm.
and trying to work out whether they want you to tell them the solution, tell them direction, or let them find the solution themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to be told what to do. Others, they don't want to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to pick up on the subtle signs, because you know them a lot more than that straight manager-staff relationship, I think you can develop over time a feeling of when they want something to be done a certain way, or whether they've got ideas that they just want you to encourage out of them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point there, Paul, about kind of starting with that connection, like finding ways as opposed to just, you know, work, but like, oh, tell me about, you know, your family or your sports or whatever, you know, what is your, you know, what do you do outside of work? Maybe you like to play a musical instrument or something like that you can kind of find, you know, something they like. It's so important, isn't it?
Exactly. And to take it further, like I was talking specifically about that manager staff, which is where I still was. We weren't fully agile as such. We still had that corporate structure, but even going to the next level, and as I would do, I'd walk into our call center and talk to the people who are using the systems, and, you know, even, as I said, having lunches with them
mm-hmm.
in the common lunchroom, and you then find out a lot more than asking for a requirement specification, for instance. Some of the more rewarding conversations are when someone stops you in the hallway and they tell you, whether it's good or bad, but
mm-hmm.
they will actually give you vital information as such. So again, having that relationship, that's more with the customer, and certainly, you know, from the executives in the company too. You've got to be able to talk to everyone at all levels and meet them at their levels as such.
Yeah. So Cliff, I know you're kind of out looking for a new opportunity. What are some of the things you've been trying to, kind of look for ways to use those relationships, or have you been able, I guess, especially now in our current situation, are you be able to network at all, or?
Yeah, I hang out on Agile boards on Slack. I've got some certifications, so I hang out on the community forums there, and I just keep myself busy, and it's really kind of fun because I'm not under pressure to produce anything.
Yep.
And I can actually enjoy the discussions that follow.
That's a good point. Sometimes we get kind of intent, maybe when we're in a discussion, to think about what we're going to say or what our point, but you just kind of have to. It's probably a good listening skill, isn't it, Cliff?
Yeah, and that's something that I've really evolved over time, is realizing that I was not a good listener. And so I had to put some good rigor into getting outside of my limited space and really try to empathize and connect with what other people are saying. And, I read recently, somebody said, in fact, I think it was Jordan B. Peterson, if I'm not mistaken, said, listen to other people like they know something that you don't know, and you have to find out what it is.
Yeah.
And that's really helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We can kind of, I was kind of smiling there. We can kind of be flip and think we've got that part figured out. But like you said, Cliff, they know something we don't know, and they have experience. So that's important. Now, Paul, you were talking about something earlier that made me think about, you kind of said something along the lines of being curious and kind of when you were trying to connect with people. Talk about like how what are some things you do when you try to get to know somebody, or maybe there's some certain questions you like to ask?
Look, a good early one is, what did you do on the weekend? It's amazing just how much that gets people to talk about what they did, because normally they're doing something that they're passionate about. It interests them. If they've gone to, say, a particular movie, or they might have gone to a music event, or they've rebuilt the garden or something or other. Just a simple question like that can then generate quite a lot of discussion. And the other one that I always like is, I don't ask it directly, but try to ask a question about their family. Try to find out. I'll often start with something about what my kids did, or something. So I know some people, and you never quite know what's happening in people's families. So sometimes they don't want to talk about it. So that instance, I prefer to actually say something about what my son or daughter did, and it might be have been at a school in the early days, or career, or what they got up to on the weekend, or that. And depending on how people respond to that, you can sort of find out a bit more about them.
Yeah, not be too direct, but you can just kind of bring some things up, can't you, indirectly, I guess. Yeah,
and that's, again, it's a balance where I think as you get to know people a bit more, but and that's why the lunchrooms are a great place to start to get to know people, because some people will actually talk a lot, and you can start with them and start that conversation with them without actually challenging people, in the sense that a lot of people are a lot more introverted, or they're there for the job and they'll go finish at 5 and that's the last I think about it. Again, you try not to be confronting, I guess is the word. You are, at the end of the day, trying to get some empathy with the people you're talking to. That takes a little bit of time, and to me, being subtle and slow about it without that charge ahead is a very important thing for me. Yeah, that empathy is so important, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, that understanding.
And that's one thing I know, and I talk about it a little later in the speech, but there's a point where, kind of like you had talked about, where I worked at a company and we got to go to a call center and we were writing the software that these people used. And that was just like an eye-opening moment when we saw them. So we had like one application they used and they had like 5 other ones. And we started to realize how disjointed their world was, and how, like they have somebody on the phone and they're trying to figure out the problem and they're going to like 3 different applications to try to pinpoint something. It's like, wow, how do you do that?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I think I've mentioned it to you in one of our previous conversations, Thomas. That, I always found it fortunate that my first, IT related job, I was actually an operator, but I was sitting in the same areas that the people inputting the data, and that to hear what annoyed them, often quite vociferously. But it always gave me an insight of how, and when I started to program in that job, I knew how I was programming was impacting the work and how people could get their job done. Yeah. And I was, I'm going back way too many years now, but I'm still taking that with me, is that understanding that what you do is actually impacting the experience of someone has at work for the day. Similar to that, if there's got 5 different programs to get the job done, that can't be nice. So if you can do something to alleviate part of that, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Cliff, how have you kind of been empathetic with some of the people you've worked with?
I think it really showed up a lot in my last role as a squad leader. We went agile. It was more or less forced upon us because it's a huge organization and you just couldn't train everybody, and you couldn't communicate across so many teams, the advantages and benefits. So that devolved to us team leads over time to help figure it out and also to communicate it. But as far as my ability to empathize and communicate, I think I did a pretty good job of balancing the emotional environment so that people, didn't feel, bossed around here and there and scattered and losing their focus, because it was an intense job. But I would just try to be patient and explain, what I understood and just share with people. I think it's important that people feel like the relationship is equal.
Yeah.
And if it is, you can communicate with them without getting too casual about it and too chummy. It's a fine line that you have to walk. But the people have to know that you do empathize with them. And I kind of rose up from the ranks and, I felt their pain too.
Yeah.
High intensity environment, constant interruption and reprioritization. So I think at the end, when my entire team got laid off, we still had a friendly disposition towards each other, and we had some email communications after that.
Yeah, that's a tough situation to walk through.
Yeah, I don't think we were let go because of any competency issues. It's just policy.
Yep.
This sector has to go. We're shifting over here.
Yep. Yeah, that's tough. So, well, hey guys, I appreciate you both jumping on here and kind of having a good conversation and sharing with us. I appreciate that so much. And just so you guys know, there's some more. I'll be doing some more of these as we go. Hopefully you can join us for some more. And if there's anybody that you think would value from a little more of this conversation, make sure you share it with them, as we'll probably have one in another few weeks or so. Okay.